14 minutes. I want everybody to think about that time for 1 minute and think to themselves, 14 minutes, that doesn't seem like a long amount of time. And why am I concerned with 14 minutes? Well, 14 minutes is the average response time for the police to an active shooter. Now, with current gun control laws, the way they are, it is unlawful for someone to carry a concealed weapon inside of a school. And with the rash of school shootings that have gone on over the last several years, 14 minutes can seem to be a very long time. By the end of this speech, I'm hoping to persuade you into changing your views of gun control laws in this state, in this country. In today's world, there's way too many knee-jerk reactions when it comes to gun control laws. Mass shooting happens, they bring out the families crying, and they all jump up and say, we need to have stricter gun control laws. I don't think that's going to fix the problem. An active shooter inside of a school is still going to get a gun. They are criminal by design, and a criminal is going to get a gun whether he plays by the rules or not. How many criminals do you know play by the rules? They don't follow all the strict standards that are out there to get a gun. They'll buy one off the street with a scratched off serial number and use it to commit their crime. Now, how do I know this, you ask? Well, I've responded to police, as a police officer, to shooting calls. My average time to get to these types of calls, within a couple minutes. But with the policies that the police departments have in place, we can only react so fast. We can only do so much. Now, by keeping an open mind while you're listening to me today, I'm going to go over 3 main points with you. I'm going to go over some crime rates. I'm going to go over some case law regarding the Second Amendment. And I'm going to go over some statistics involving mass shootings. Now, we'll start with some crime rates. Now, everybody says that people who are carrying guns, and in the states that have higher gun control regulations, their crime rates are going to be higher. That's not the case. According to a applied economics letter that was done between 1980 and 2009, a study was done, and gun-related homicides were 10% higher in states with restrictive concealed weapons laws. Another study was done by the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Injury Prevention back in 2010, and it said that only 0.5% of fatal accidents that year were caused by a firearm. So out of 123,706 fatalities, only 613 of those were related to a gun. Now, after passing their concealed weapons law in Florida, they have a shall issue type of permit where the state cannot go and say, you can't have one. If you meet the criteria, they shall issue a permit for a concealed weapon permit. I currently have a concealed weapons permit in Florida. But after passing that law, Florida's homicide rate fell from 36% above the national average to 4% below. And according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, between 1995 and 2001, after Texas passing the same type of law, not only did their murder rates fall, but they fell 50% faster than the national average. And it also had a contributing factor to other crimes like rape, assault, burglary. So why is it so important for some politicians to try to thwart the public by infringing on their Second Amendment right. It all comes down to case law. Now, in McDonald versus the City of Chicago, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. In 1982, the City of Chicago attempted to institute a ban on all handguns, except for those who already had a permit before that time. And those that already had a permit had to re-register every 2 years or forfeit their permit. Now, this law was challenged, and it took all the way till 2010 before it was decided by a Supreme Court, and in a 5-4 decision, the law was ruled unconstitutional, and the City of Chicago had to get rid of that law. Now, in 2008, the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 decision that the Second Amendment right applies to the District of Columbia and struck down a D.C. law banning the possession of firearm in the home for self-defense. And more recently, just in February of this year, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down a California law banning the carrying of a concealed weapon. There's case law after case law after case law that shows that every time they try to ban the concealed weapons permit or an individual's right to carry a firearm, it always gets struck down. But yet they keep going after it. They keep trying to do it. They keep trying to take away everybody's Second Amendment right. And why is that? I believe it's because they think if they take less guns off the street, or if they take more guns off the street, then we're going to have less mass shootings. It's not the case. According to a University of Chicago study that was done between 77 and 1995, in those states that had a shall issue permit, their mass shootings dropped in numbers. And if you ask most law enforcement officers out there, including myself, they're going to tell you that the best way to deal with a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Now, politicians will pull on everybody's heartstrings and say, look at these children that were in this school that were murdered innocently. We need to take the guns away from people. And as emotional as that is, do you think it's really going to help? As I said earlier, criminals don't play by the rules. They will go and do what they want to do. That's why they're criminals. At the very beginning, I said 14 minutes. And I asked you to keep that thought in mind. 14 minutes. And there's a reason why. In 1999, 2 students went into Columbine High School. After they booby-trapped the doors, booby-trapped their car, they went on a shooting spree inside of that school. They killed 12 students, 1 teacher, before turning the guns on themselves. From the first 911 call until the time that the police responded and entered the building was 32 minutes. For 32 minutes, those children, those kids, those criminals were allowed to go on a shooting rampage inside of that school. Now, more recently in December 2012, in my home state of Connecticut, down in Sandy Hook Elementary School, A shooter broke into the school, encountered several teachers in the hallway who warned everybody else that there was a shooter in the school. It could be heard over the intercom. And went on a 14-minute killing spree where he killed 20 children and 6 adults. One of them I know very personally, who was a good friend of mine. In a span of 5 minutes, that shooter went through 156 rounds of ammunition. In a span of 5 minutes. Now, had the current gun control laws been different, and a teacher who has a concealed weapons permit had a gun on them that day, those 20 children may still be alive today. When he was met in the hallway by one of those teachers, if one of those teachers had a concealed weapon at that point in time, that story could have a totally different ending. And tragic as it is, when they take the parents and they pull them out and they say, we need to take guns off the streets so this kind of thing doesn't happen. And they have the parents standing in the background. They're tilting their own agenda to try to take away your right to carry a weapon. So I pose a question in a different way. I dare you to take one of those parents and ask them this. If gun control laws were different and teachers were allowed to carry in the schools, and there was an opportunity for one of those teachers to take out that shooter and protect the lives of everybody else in that school, would you still feel the same about gun control laws? Now that's pulling on everybody's heartstrings as well, but that's the opposite side of the story. And that's the opposite side of the story that most of the politicians don't want you to hear. Case law, crime rates, and statistics on mass public shootings. They're all out there for you to look at. You don't have to believe me. Go do the research yourself, and you will see crime rates are lower. Case law is always overturned in favor of the petitioner. And them 14 minutes could be ended sooner rather than later, and innocent lives could be saved. So in today's world, politicians, people will use mass hysteria and emotional issues to try to push their gun control legislation, to push their gun control issues, without listing all of the facts. So in looking at gun control, everyone deserves the right to carry for self-defense. And everybody needs to know all the facts. And if we're allowed to change our way of thinking, and we are allowed to have teachers or principals have a concealed weapon while they're performing their duty of protecting our children, then maybe, just maybe, the next person who breaks into a school will have a very different outcome.